I was in Belleville High School. I got thrown out for hitting a teacher in the head with a disc. So they threw me out.
Okay.
And I got a job until I turned 17. And I decided I'm going to either join the military and go to jail. And I did both in the military.
This is going to hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. There are only two directions in life that you can run. If you run backwards into digression, it is possible to fall in the deepest, darkest hole. If you run forward, inevitably, you're leaving something behind. For most, standing still is never an option. A life of service can come at a great cost. As we run towards the danger, that often means we're running away from our own demons. On occasion, those demons are faster than we think. We are always trying to advance our position, which is why moving forward is so important. On the days we'd like to take a break, we know that's when life will catch up. We put one foot in front of the other and try to maintain some vertical momentum. I'm Kevin Donaldson, here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all new content, and now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome the comeback coach himself, Richard Kaufman, to discuss the suffering of vertical momentum. Richard was in a real dark place, but he got out of that place, but he makes sure never to leave anybody behind, and that's what I admire so much about you. Thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Oh, it's my honor. It's a blessing just to be here and hang out with you guys.
Before we get into anything,
we're not over yet. You may say that. You may not say that at the end of the show.
Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as cops, but we do trust them. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. And we just had another one sold from them.
Well, see that?
Yeah. So
we're doing good.
Listen, I always like to support the people that support us. So, Richard, every week we take a question from our audience. This week's question comes from Pt.1 So what keeps you on your path? You're on this very motivating path that wasn't always the case. So you need to keep on the straight and narrow. What keeps you on the straight and narrow on your path?
And I knew you were going to ask me that question.
Because he sent it in.
Yeah.
I'm PDK, but I can't tell you about that. But when I couldn't sleep last night because I was thinking about this question. And if you see in my post today, I actually, every 6 months, I write my own obituary.
That's interesting.
So for me to stay on my path is when I write my obituary, I want to be that guy that I wrote about. So if I say I'm going to be a great husband, a great father, a great son, a great friend, I got to do those things in order to be that man in the obituary. So that's what keeps me on the straight and narrow, because I actually wrote my obituary out.
Do you set goals that you haven't reached yet, you haven't attained yet?
Oh yeah, I have. Like, my goal this year is just to touch 3 million people. So I mean, if your goals your goals should scare you. If your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough.
You know, it's funny. I was going to say that. Like, it's more like goals. Like, you write your obituary. That's kind of like a morbid way of writing your own goals, you know?
Yeah.
Because you want to be that person. It's just like writing out your goals. You know, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this.
So David Goggins put something like that very, very, very cool, a good way to say it. He goes, when I go meet my maker, there's going to be a board of all the things that I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be this. I was supposed to be this. I was supposed to be this. I want to do so much in my life that my creator's going to look at me and go, well, you weren't supposed to do that, and you weren't supposed to do that, but you did it anyway. So I always thought that was a cool way to put it, and it's kind of along the same lines.
No, that's where I got it from. I got it from because I listened to all Goggins' books, and talked to him a few times. So he's one of the guys. I'm like, it makes a lot of sense.
I love what he says, and I was trying to play something for my wife. He just curses way too much. He's motherfucker and this and motherfucker that.
Like Gary Vee in a way.
Yeah, Gary Vee, who I've spoken.
You know, when I do die, they're going to have things up there that I did.
Told everybody else who
and
died?
They're going to shut the door. No, you're not coming in.
Mike, what do you think? How do you stay on your path?
You know, and we've all gone down that deep, dark place. You know, that I just keep reminding myself of those low moments. And I just don't want to do it again. You know, so it just kind of, it centers you and keeps you going straight forward.
So I never forget the past, but I tell my kids this all the time, and I've spoken about this on the show before, and I always go by the mantra and the ethos, remember tomorrow. So you can do whatever you want today. You want to go out there and chug a fifth of vodka, go do it. But you better remember tomorrow. I've spent so much of my life trying to live right, be sober, be a good person, that if I were to slip up and do that stuff, I'm going to regret whatever I did in the moment for that momentary pleasure tomorrow, because I'm going to wake up with a hangover. I'll probably be sleeping on the front lawn. Who knows if my wife would let me back in the house.
All body parts that you didn't even know you had were going to hurt.
Exactly. And that pain of that hangover and, amongst other things, the disappointment of all the years I just threw away just for momentary pleasure. So I teach my kids that too. You can go out and do whatever you want to do, but you better remember tomorrow. And if you want to play big boy games, you better be willing to pay the big boy price.
And I love that. Like, I had many Navy SEALs on, and I love their mantra that there is no tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's only today.
Tomorrow's never guaranteed.
Yeah. So
and the only easy day was yesterday.
Yeah. So I love that. That's if you want to know where you're going to be in 5 years, it's what you're doing at this moment. 5 years from now, you'll know where you're going to be.
So we were talking about Jocko before the show started, and one of the things that Jocko says is everybody wants to do this and wants to do that, but they procrastinate because a lot of people don't know where to start, how to begin, or anything. He goes, you know what is the antidote for procrastination? It's just to start.
Yeah,
it's that simple. So PDK 4726, aka Richard Kaufman, thank you for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So Richard, you run this ultra successful podcast, Vertical Momentum Podcast, which I adore. You work really hard at it. You've written multiple books. I've become a big fan of what you do. I think you're on the right path, but you've come from a lot of pain. So why don't you give our audience a little bit of background on yourself, how you grew up?
I was the guy that when your parents said, "Don't hang out with that guy,"
You were him.
That was me. I was the guy. But I'm also the guy, if you're walking down the street in Harlem, I'm the guy you're going to want next to you. So I have so many different, things that I'm the opposites. So many, like, at one time I got thrown out of the military for being a drug addict. Got back in, almost got thrown out again, but 9/11 saved me. But then I went from the worst soldier to soldier of the year within 3 years. So I went from the worst to the best.
Well, you know everything at that point. You know what being the worst is, and you'll never know if you're the best if you don't know what the worst is.
You learn from your own mistakes.
Yeah.
So I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I'm a ninth grade dropout.
Oh, I also know you're a son of Nutley.
Yeah, I hung out in Nutley. I met my wife on Church Hill. That's where I met her 40 years ago, and now we're married with 3 beautiful kids. So I'm originally from Belleville, so we kind of had that Belleville Nutley, hated each other, always fight.
The rivalries.
Yeah, always.
All the Italians in the Belleville Nutley area.
Yeah, fighting at St. Anthony's Feast every year.
As big a county as Essex County is, it's pretty small when it comes to rivalries.
Yeah.
So I mean, I dropped out. I had my first drink at 11, full blown alcoholic 13.
Full blown alcoholic. So talk to us a little bit about how you got your first drink at 11. Somebody's feeding you alcohol.
Well, what happened was my parents were active alcoholics, so they went out for New Year's. So I found a liquor cabinet and
Blackberry brandy. Was that your first drink?
It was scotch.
Oh my God!
And you still drank after that?
It was like turpentine.
One taste of scotch, especially at 11 years old, I'd probably never drink again.
I think most of the world started drinking on Blackberry brandy. I'm almost positive of that because I've ran into a lot of people. The first nip was that warms you.
No, the girls were like Boone's Farm strawberry.
Mad Dog 2020.
Yeah. So I had my first drink at 11, and my cousins were drinking with me that night. They were like 17, 18. They went to bed, and I'm like, "What do you mean you're going to bed? There's still alcohol in this cabinet. I'm 11." So that's not a very great thing to be.
Well, so what nobody drinks for no reason. All right. So what led you to do that? Was it something the older kids were doing, or you thought this was what?
It just looked cool. I come from an Italian household. Everybody drinks wine with every meal. Every holiday, somebody's getting liquored up, arguing, fighting. So I'm like, it's what we do.
You know,
Do you think your parents being active alcoholics led you to that? Like,
Yeah.
because you saw them drinking, so you say, if they're doing it, why can't I?
Yeah, but you know what it was, because I had my first taste, and immediately I was hooked. Immediately, because before I had that drink, I was Richard. As soon as I had that drink, I was Rick. I became a totally different person.
It's like Lawrence Taylor and LT.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like once I had that drink, I had that courage to be somebody else. So that's why I started drinking heavily, because I don't have to be Richard anymore. I can be this new creation, Rick.
See, I grew up in a household with an alcoholic as well, and they used to, whenever there was parties around, they used to have those Miller Nips.
Yeah.
Remember those? They were like the 7-ounce things.
Yep.
So it was a 4th of July. I'll never forget it. They went outside to watch the fireworks, and there's one of these nips laying on the table. I take it and I drink it. I mean, I drink the whole thing down. Now, here's the problem. I'm about 7 years old or something like that. I know they're going to come back in and realize that nip is gone. So what do? As a 7-year-old kid, you fill it with water.
Yeah.
You fill it with water.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my dad's friend, who was a raging alcoholic, comes in and says, "Man, I got to slow down because this stuff's starting to taste like water."
So you were watering it down.
I was watering it down, but yeah, it was easier back then. It's like the whole reason I started smoking is because my parents were smokers, and there was easy access to all that stuff. It was just normal.
But then also, I've talked to many people, and there's a brother and a sister, and the father was an alcoholic. And I asked, well, why do you drink, or why don't you drink? Well, my father drank. So it's the same kids.
Yeah.
Same reason that either one drinks or the other doesn't drink, is my father drank.
You see kids, 3 or 4 kids in a family. One of them's a stone cold drunk because the father drank. I had a friend of mine growing up. He wouldn't touch a drop of alcohol because his grandfather was a drunk. But his brother died of a drug overdose.
Right. So you see the worst. You see what can become. You see the future. Because I have the gene. So if you talk nature versus nurture, I have the gene for alcohol. Most of my family is alcoholics.
My mother's whole side of the family was either alcoholics or drug addicts.
And I was always conscious of that. I was always conscious. It never stopped me. But and again, going back, this is something I tell my kids. It's like there's that one person out there. There's those people out there that can have one drink of alcohol today and never touch it again for 30 years. They just don't need it. They don't want it. There's a person that can have a cigarette today and never need it. There's a person that can smoke weed today and never touch it again. And the same thing with heroin, cocaine, down the line. And I tell my kids this. I said, you don't know which one you are. And the only way to find out is to try it. But are you going to roll those dice?
Yeah, because, I mean, it's fun until it stops being fun.
Right. Right.
And then peer pressure jumps in.
Yeah.
When you're that young,
Yeah.
you have that one drink, and then all your friends, come on, that's only one. Have another one. Have another one. Have another one.
Lightweight. Then you start throwing around
But the bad thing is when you're 13 and you're putting away two cases a night and a fifth of Sambuca.
Oh, you were one of those
At
kids.
13,
Would they-
and you're out drinking the adults, that's when there's an issue. And I was 120 pounds.
I had a friend of mine that had this enormous constitution, and his uncle worked at a beer distributor, which was even worse. And he was an alcoholic too. So there was beer all over the place. At 15, 16 years old, he'd drink a case of beer.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I can't drink a case of beer, and I was twice the size of him. But some people just...
Yeah, like when we would have drinking games, I was the drinker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't want to throw. Just let me drink. So even when I won. I'm like, let me just take a drink.
So you were known as the drinker.
Oh, I was the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, when I met my wife, I was drinking. I would drink straight out the keg. It was like, who needed glass? Like, just drink straight out the keg.
It takes too much time to put it in a glass and to drink it. Just
Now, you're a 9th grade dropout.
Yeah.
But was it out in the open that you drank, or did you try to hide it?
Oh no, I was the guy that was wearing sunglasses in the back of the room, passing out, nodding out at like in 8th grade.
No kidding.
9th grade.
And the teachers didn't notice this, didn't identify it?
Well, you know what it is? I had a severe case of ADHD, a slight case of dyslexia. So they always told me, well, you're dumb. No, you just told me 1 + 1 is 2. I get it. Let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they keep teaching me the same thing. So of course I'm going to rebel, and I'm going to be like, and then I started fooling around, and they're like, yeah, you're dumb at that. And this is back in the 80s. So they don't know what ADHD is at that point.
No, you were hyper.
Oh, I was friggin' wired.
Or you're the problem student.
Right. Don't give them sugar.
Oh, yeah.
That was it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't get. We all had hyper kids in class. Don't give them sugar. But that didn't seem to calm them down when they had no sugar.
No.
They're high metabolism, I guess. But anyway, you're moving on, and are your friends hanging around you, or you, like you said, you were the guy that the parents said stay away from this guy because of alcohol, I'm assuming. You know, what did your friends in your orbit think about your drinking capabilities?
Well, they just knew I wasn't normal. Because, I mean, even when they were going, like, we would party at my friend's house from Nutley, a bunch of Nutley boys hanging out. And we'd all get hammered Friday, Saturday night. Well, they're getting ready for school on Sunday night. I'm still going. I'm not ready to go home.
What did your parents say about you dropping out in ninth grade?
They weren't there. I pretty much raised myself from like the age of 14. So I was my own parent.
I was going to say 13 or ninth grade, you're probably 13 or 14 years old. Now you had nothing to do. Did you get a job or anything, or you just...
I mean, I took shitty jobs pumping gas. I worked at the ShopRite in Belleville. Nothing substantial. I lived on the streets for a while. Like my parents, they worked, but you know, then they would go on vacations without me. And I was like, "Here's $20. Go to Tacos, grab something to eat." And I'd stand in front of the liquor store and buy ShopRite, get some beer.
Wait, your parents went on vacation without you?
Oh yeah, bro. It's,
home alone.
yes, exactly. I was the Home Alone kid, but we had brown hair. That's the only difference.
It's such a foreign world to me. And I know you have children.
I got 3, yeah.
And it's such a foreign world to me. You know, I would live and die for my kids. And I go on vacation without them?
Yeah.
Listen, there are times when you and your wife need some alone time. I get that. I understand that. But you make sure the kids are taken care of.
And this is back in the day without cell phones.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Could you imagine being away?
They would just haul ass to Pennsylvania, go camping. It's like, here's $20, and there's some bologna in the fridge. See on Sunday, and I'm like, okay, I'll survive.
Party.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like I'll survive. There's no, if I got to steal food, I'll steal food, but I'm going to survive either way. So that's why I had that survival mechanism. From 12 and 13 years old. It's like I'll figure it out.
So how did you come across joining the military?
Well, for me, I was in Belleville High School. I got thrown out for hitting a teacher in the head with a disc. So they threw me out.
Okay.
And I got a job until I turned 17. And I decided I'm going to either join the military and go to jail. And I did both in the military. So at 17, I'm partying. It's funny. I'm partying in Germany in Oktoberfest, roadieing for Joan Jett at 17 years old.
So you see the trail of women going into her dressing room?
Yeah, so I'm just rocking and roll. I'm living a rock and roll lifestyle at 17 and 19.
Did it ever get old, or you were thinking, this is it, this is what I want?
Well, no, you know what it is? I never planned to live past the age of 20. So, I'm gonna live hard. I'm gonna die young and leave a good looking corpse. That was my goal. And it really was. And so I would drink all week and then take acid from Friday night to Sunday night.
So now
for 2 years straight.
You graduated from liquor to much more illicit drugs.
Well, yeah, because in the military, they can't drug test you for acid because you have to do a spinal tap. It's $10,000 for them to do that. So they're not going to test you. So I found a way. That's what I got into.
NCAA was the same with steroids.
Yeah.
So, for 2 years, from 17 to 19, that's all I did. I was a soldier during the day, and I was the party animal at night.
And now you're out on your own, and you're... Yeah, now there's no leashes on you at all. You're just free to do whatever you want to do. But they took a 17-year-old kid who obviously has a problem with alcohol. It leads you to wonder what their selection process is like. So,
they took me. I didn't even have a GED.
I was going to ask you if you got a GED or
no,
not.
I don't even have a GED now. But for me, I got street smarts and I got book smarts now, so I don't need a GED. But for them, they're like, yeah, come on in. We'll take anybody at this point.
Well, in the 80s, we weren't in an active war in the 80s. So, and I know the military was low at that point. We didn't really need them. There was conflicts in here and there, but there was nothing active.
No. So they're like, yeah, you want to join? I'm like, yeah, why not? I got nothing else going on. So, but after 2 years, and I got busted 8 times, they're like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work out.
So how did you get through boot camp having this alcohol problem?
Oh man, it was tough because I went to basic at 120 pounds. I couldn't even do 10 push-ups. So they actually had to recycle me because I couldn't even do the physical work.
So now we're in stripes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was actually exactly.
Sergeant Holker.
But back then they put you
big toe.
in a big yellow suit. You're in a yellow jumpsuit. So they recycled me for a few times. But once I got it, and once I realized, all right, this is just a mind fuck.
Yep.
That's all
That's
this
all
is.
it is.
And I'm like, once I got that, I'm like, okay,
Were you the guy that
this.
walked in and said, "My name's Richard, but if you call me Richard, I'll kill you"?
No,
My name is Dewey Oxberger.
no. I wish
friends
I
call me
could
Ox.
have the picture. I'll show it to you guys. I went to because I was a big wrestling fan. I'm a big wrestling fan, right? And I loved Ric Flair. And my hair was like down here, so I dyed my hair platinum.
Oh,
And the night before, I'm going, oh shit, I got to go to basic with platinum hair. I tried to dye it back, you don't turn red. So I went to basic. My hair was out to here, and they just rode me bad. I mean, I had earrings up. I had like both ears pierced. They were fighting to shave me. Like,
you're a walking, talking nickname at this point.
Yeah.
and then you're like, you're from Jersey? You're a street kid from Jersey? They wore me out. They wore me out.
What branch did you go into?
I joined the Army. I was a tanker. That was my job, which I loved. It was freaking awesome. But, once I realized it's a mind fuck. Once I realized, okay, you're not going to kill me. I might pass out. And then I just started crushing it. As soon as I realized it's just a mind game, I crushed it.
So how many weeks was basic?
Back when I went in '86, it was one station unit training. So you went to basic and AIT at the same place.
Okay.
So I think it was like 4 months.
4 months. So how long did it take you to figure out the game? And I want to ask you the same question about the police academy. How long did it for you to figure out that this is strictly just a mind fuck?
First week.
First week, you got quick, Mike.
Probably orientation day.
Yeah.
When you come home and tell everybody how bad orientation day was, it's like, they'll calm down after that.
Yeah.
It's all a mind game.
I realized that the game after like about 3 weeks, which was just to break you down and build you up. And once I figured that out, I was like, maybe a little sooner than that. But once I figured that out, I didn't have to be the tough guy. Like I didn't have to just do whatever they told me to do. And I did. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't insubordinate or anything, but I realized that they're just trying to break down all the individuals. And at that point, I wasn't an individual. I was good at doing what I had to do. So you get through basic.
But now listen, this is a cool story. Is that when I got there, I couldn't even pass the PT test. Now, once I figured the game out, they were doing PT at like 5 a.m. and then we'd cut off at 4 a.m. I would do PT again, and then I would do 100 push-ups before I went to bed because I knew the game. So by the end, I was actually maxing out the push-ups, the sit-ups, and the run.
Still drinking?
No, I couldn't. There was no alcohol at that time, so I was going through that.
DTs.
Yeah, exactly. But I was rocking it. I was crushing it because I realized, okay, you want to play the game? Like Triple H says, it's time to play the game.
Was there anything in your head at that point saying, hey, listen, I'm pretty good at this without the alcohol? Maybe that wasn't the path.
Nah, I was like, man, I got to find a
I
place
can't
to go
wait to get
truck.
over this so I get back to the alcohol.
Exactly. And then I'm at Fort Knox, and it's a dry county.